Welcome to Radio Week, day 4. Welcome everybody on every platform watching us. In this roundtable, we will discuss how radio operations and the workflow is changing as a result of remote working, and also the future of radio operations. We can count on the experience of authoritative point of view of professionals working in Europe and in Asia that are the guests of this roundtable. Let me introduce them. José Loureiro, Assistant Manager at Radio Innovation and Technical Unit of Arcom in Portugal. This is a broadcaster with 3 well-known radio brands and a web radio bouquet. About 4.5 million people listen to the group's stations every week. Then we have Matthias Pfaff, CDO at Regiocast Germany. This is a radio group with more than 20 radio brands, 220 digital radio channels, and 9 million radio listeners per day. This number rises to 21 million, including users of its digital audio services, and the Regiocast is also a service provider for media companies in Germany. Then we have Bala, CTO at Astro Radio in Malaysia. This is the #1 radio network in Malaysia with a weekly listener reach of more than 15 million across 11 brands. And Michael Thielen, Vice President Media Solution at CGI, International IT and Business Consulting Services firm. Thank you for watching this session, which is free thanks to a sponsor, and also this session is made possible by a sponsor. Let's know the sponsor. Let's meet the sponsor with this video.
CGI's media solutions have been empowering international TV and radio stations for over 30 years. We understand story-centric planning and audience-centric production and distribution, leading the way in journalistic workflows that are paired with global IT excellence. We are established and trusted, high-quality, authentic, and close to our clients. We know the media business and can adapt to our clients' needs. For your radio production needs, look no further than DIRA. From pre-production through to playout, DIRA supports radio broadcasters with an end-to-end radio production workflow and visual radio solutions. DIRA Highlander is a content management system that helps editorial teams to create and modify media assets, as well as to search for selected data. This helps with anything archive, from post-processing to producing podcasts. To begin with, DIRA Scheduler is a planning solution that's open to any third-party system, allowing you to organize everything from advanced schedule templates to music rotation integration. For playout, there's DIRA On-Air Player that offers a built-in crossfade editor, voice track editor, and jingle management tools. An integrated content browser features time scaling and loops on the fly, combined with a network-independent emergency operation. On-Air API allows flexible integrations. DIRA Medox is the next generation of DIRA that will be web-based and cloud-native, with functions such as storing, editing, and searching for media assets, which enables cross-media operations. And DIRA Viura is our solution for intelligent, event-controlled camera automation in radio studios for editors and presenters. Packaging elements such as lower thirds or broadcast logos can be generated automatically, while additional images or video sequences can be easily imported from any third-party software. Whatever your production needs, DIRA is at the forefront of the digital radio revolution. As part of CGI's global network, we are in the proximity of our clients, also addressing the full scope of IT services. CGI, leading solutions for journalistic workflows, paired with global IT excellence.
And I propose to make a first round of the table analyzing the changes in radio industry in more recent times. We know that with the pandemic, there has been an acceleration of some trends, some extraordinary needs have emerged. For example, remote radio software was previously intended as an academic exercise, nothing so useful, but now is a reality, and in many cases it was the only way to go on the air during the lockdown, for example. But the publishers had already turned their attention to another important factor before the pandemic: the change in habits of listeners, who had already started years before to use social networks, streaming, smart speakers, on-demand modes for programs. So I would make a first round of the table with you and ask each of you what has changed into your radio stations, let's say in the last 5 years. I would like to start from the content, and then we go to workflow, technology, skills, and so on. Have the content or the format, for example, of morning shows, news services, music offer changed, and how? Let's start with Jose.
Hello. Thank you for the invitation. I think if we look at the last 5 years, as you were saying, in the Portugal market at least, what I really feel most is that there was almost like if we were moving back in time on radio and getting worried again of being close to the people. We now know that the audience is moving around all the time, have access to a lot of content in many different ways. We are not as safe radio, even in the movement. So maybe inside the car we were kings. Now we have more competitors, and the consumption of media changed a lot by the people. So I think one of the changes that I saw was, for example, on the morning shows, even on the music stations, more talk on the morning shows. So in a way, it seems to me that is to be able to differentiate radio from the streaming services. So if music stations have made a progress where the most important thing was to play 10 songs in a row, 45 minutes of music non-stop. What we feel now is that the main morning shows in Portugal and the two leader stations in Portugal, RFM and one of the competitors, are more and more turning onto almost a talk radio in the morning period. And I really feel that is because we need to differentiate our product from the streaming platforms. We serve music, but we serve music in a completely different way. On the news side, we feel that we had to change a little bit the perspective. We have a lot of content now that is digital first. We have a lot of content that is born on the digital, produced for digital, and then reused on air, when it used to be exactly the opposite way. And we have to, even following our editorial principles, we need to follow more trends, either Twitter trends or just things that happening between the people. So I think that was one of the main changes on the news side of it. Also, of course, that we are working a lot more with the on-demand material and having to be able to reconvert radio content into podcasts and with different formats and adapted formats for different consumption perspective. And finally, just to finish, I think also the proximity. We have been doing a big work on the last 2 years are different because of the pandemics, but even before that, to be more and more close to the people. So doing a lot of shows on the road, being transmitting and making and producing the radio shows from the places where the people is and not always closed in the studio. So getting to be shown and getting to be closest as possible of the day life of people.
Okay, a sort of humanization of radio to compete with the technology. But I think we will go deeper in some of these topics, for example, the on-demand audio, later in the discussion. Now the point of view of Matthias from Germany.
Yeah, thank you very much. Well, our goal was to develop a digital reach, and this is based on the idea to build new digital radio brands. We started that, I think, 5 to 6 years ago, so it fits to the time you said we should go back, so 5 years. And when we started Radiocast, I think nearly 20 years ago, it's a combination of countrywide, not nationwide. And private radio in Germany is not existing nationwide. It's just by states or by countries. So it's a combination of market leaders, stations in Schleswig-Holstein and in Saxony and all these single parts of Germany. But you don't have national private radio stations. And with the help of digital broadcasting, it's possible to have that with digital radio brands with a total different business model. Because the refinancing of and monetization of digital reach was 5 years ago very, very low and hard, and you didn't have that part or that share of digital reach that you have today, especially after lockdowns, where people get very in love with their smart speakers, much more than they did in the years before in Germany. So that was one of our tasks, to double nearly the brands of Radiocast by not only radio brands, new ideas for radio. It's more to build up digital audio platforms. So you have a brand, you have a single, more or less live radio sounding station, and you have a lot of different web channels around the station where you can shift audiences from one to the other. And that's why you need own ecosystems for that. You need audio-centric websites, you need applications. We developed that all by ourselves. We have our own tech department for that. And it's really successful. We have annual growth between 35 and 45% a year since 2015, which is really successful in Germany. And one of the things we developed, or we came up with when we thought about all the things we want to do, is what is the technical base or what is the workflow base for that, and how can we do that? It's not possible to copy the workflow of traditional live radio stations from 20 years ago to reach these goals. And so we came up with the idea, which is not from us. I think BBC invented this word years ago, of object-based broadcasting, of kicking out the real live broadcasting instead of a near-to-live broadcasting idea based on an, let's say, content repository where all the audio is generated in, and you can get it out via APIs. So we built up a digital broadcasting system that is based natively on web technology. I think Lira is doing that now too, but we don't have that heritage of an old system that is installed and of all engineers that have to paid for and all that stuff. So we could start from new, and we're running 2 national radio stations in Germany only by web-based technology, which is highly innovative in Germany. I think nobody knows that before, but I can talk to you now. We are under us 5 here. Nobody listened to that, but I can share this with you. Yeah, this was the major task for that, and it's not over. It starts now to gain bigger, because you can run with traditional technology 40 or 50 stations. It's not a problem. You need a lot of air conditioning for that, okay, but you can do that. But if you want to run 200, 2,000 stations, even highly personalized radio, you need these broadcast objects because you need this metadata. And this is where the way split how to create or how to produce radio in the future, I think.
Okay, yes, for sure. If we think only about music channels, we can scale up to hundreds of channels completely with automation, schedulers, and so on. But if we need to place there the content closer to people, according to the tendency that also Jose talked about, and something that is in the air for us, that make fake radio today. Yes, you will need a good organization, and this is another topic that we will better focus on later. I would like to know from Bala the situation in Malaysia and eventually also behind the borders in Asia, or at least in the region where he knows better.
Hi, we have 11 solid brands. Out of these 11 brands, the major networks, I think the things changed in the last 5 years is we need to provide much more solid content, which is change the people's perception early in the morning. So we realized that most of the people like jokes mainly in the morning. Then subsequently you give them a motivational based talk songs. Then when come to around like 11 o'clock morning, you slow down a little bit. Then in the afternoon, you pick up again with like maybe a category 1 song or more of a CHR based songs. Then you slow down again in the evening. So that's how the pattern been in the last 3 years for most successful radio network. So see, like for us, like out of the 11 brands, in Malaysia it's quite unique. We broadcast in English. We have a 4 station in English, 3 in English, 4 local language Malay, 3 Chinese and 1 Tamil. Out of all the segment, we are number 1 for Malay, Chinese, English, and Tamil. So our recipe for success is like a motivational factor in the early morning that really drive the listeners to us. And as part of the workflow and technology, what is just now I mentioned, the workflow and technology has changed rapidly in the last 5 years. And what we do is like we continuously to improvise that. One of the major factors is like we simplified the technology so that it assists the content curator or content creator so that they can produce the content much more faster. And they can publish in social media like Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, just matter of one click of button. So all that backend process, like we do in-house, and that's what we publish to the announcers.
Okay. Remote work is part of the ongoing change, is something that rised with the pandemic, as said. Technology allows to increase efficiency and lower costs. Do you think that remote work is just a temporary phenomenon, or radio will be more and more outside the headquarters? And I refer to Jose that was saying we made live from outside the station, but similarly with other industries where people is working from home, how much do you think that remote radio will remain something important also after the pandemic, and also not only the advantages of this? For example, quality of audio is not always so good when transmitting from home or from a remote location. I just wanted I needed to hear Michael about the previous topic. Obviously, he's not owner of a station, but his company deals with many companies in the media scenario. So probably he can provide us a confirmation or a different overview about these topics. Michael.
So I think that remote working has just started to become more and more important, and what we see at our customer side is that remote production and even doing shows remotely was something which was done before the pandemic, but I think it will stay and it won't go away, because we see that with new emerging technologies, well, it's more and more easy to do. As the others already said, you can nowadays prepare a lot of different stations when you have the right technical environment, and you don't need to necessarily have a big building with big studios. I know that audio engineers will hate me for this, but there is no real necessity to have all this hardware stuff around. And so there is no real necessity for the people to come in to produce the shows, even if you change your program. And if you're not doing live, if you're doing S-Live, and all these new technologies that we see, I think it's really interesting, and it gives a boost also to the productivity and to the journalistic people who need to develop ideas and to bring the program forward. So what we see at our customers since the pandemic is that what we already heard from the others is that on the one hand, the content creators, they want to be near at the customer to bond with the customer, to give them the feeling that they are there. So you need local content, you need good content to keep the listeners listening to your stations. But on the other side, you do not necessarily need to do this live. You do not need necessarily to do this from a dedicated building, from a dedicated place. And I think the situation we're currently in is just the beginning, and we will more and more talk about broadcasting from anywhere, and making use of all the technologies which are coming and which are already there. So we all saw in the industry when we changed over from hardware sound cards to AS to virtual digital audio. And we all saw the move from dedicated hardware to cloud services to web-based content. And I think this will just go on, and this will, I think, help everyone to be innovative.
Okay, digital strategies of publisher. By now, most of the radio stations are digital first, especially those that have news content. We mentioned this topic. But digital helps expand other function of the station as well, and also not only lower costs, but also increase revenue. One of the trends in the last year is the growth of digital audio audience, and with this the opportunity to monetize the content with a different model compared with the traditional broadcast model. We have good tools, geolocalized streaming and audio AD servers. This is an opportunity for broadcast radio station that simulcast over IP. How much of this is reality? Because often someone says this is the future of radio, but today the revenue is not so big for many publishers from digital audio, pure digital stream. How much is reality, and what are the prospects according to you? The limits to date, also the technology, the workflow, the possibility to synchronize the spots inside the stream, how it impacts on the content and the workflow. Let's go back with a round at the table. Jose said that in his country, this is not topic of actuality. So if you have nothing to add, we go straight to Matthias.
Just to clarify, and very quickly, I think is a problem of dimension. We have a small market as the Portuguese stations, and as you were saying, the revenue that comes from digital and from the alternative digital advertising is not relevant enough to be able to be focused like that. But we are looking at it, and we are hoping that can be an opportunity for sure. And I'm sure the technology is there to help us on that, and it's getting better and better and giving us more and more solutions to be able to integrate different solutions of advertising and getting more revenue from there. But yes, for sure, the experience here is not the strongest, I believe.
Okay. Something like the remote radio 3 years ago, when everybody say, "Oh, fine, this is the future," but was not useful. No, maybe yes. In future also the digital audio will rise better also in your country. Matthias, in Germany, how is the situation with the digital audio advertising?
Yeah, it's very interesting for us because we didn't have started all these digital brands if there's no money to get. So you get in Germany if you have the same listener on your live stream instead of traditional FM broadcasting, which you can't split off, but when it comes to media bookings, you can separate the advertising. Then you get, I think, 10 times more out of the same listener with the same program. So this is very interesting. And I think we started together with the common AdSwiss system and a lot of help from technical guys inside our company, integration in a live stream. So you can just replay spots and you can do individualized streaming for everybody. So you can integrate for a single person another spot than for another person, which is from the streaming side, a little bit complicated, but it works very well. And so you can open up these in traditional ways, highest digital reach. Most of the radio stations I know have the highest reach on the simulcast stream, and all the web radio stations. The web OK is just kind of an extra. And so you can open up these the reach you have for monetization, which is working in Germany. You have all the structures for that. You have a national advertising bureau for that. It's RMS, and you have second one on the more public broadcaster side with ARD Sets and Service. The technology is there, and it's in use nearly everywhere in Germany on nearly every private radio stations. Public radio stations are not allowed to do that at the moment. So it's very interesting. Most of the usage is of the long usage that is comparable to FM usage is at home. So you have that smart speaker usage, you have that kind of Sonos and things like that. If you have usage in your own applications, mobile apps, you have, I think, half an hour, 40 minutes. But it's very interesting from the data perspective, because it's not only about digital transmission and the chance to put highly or more higher paid advertising in it. As an advertising or an advertised program, you need data to give it to your customers and to create better targeted campaigns for them. And that's why you need these people in your own applications, and that's why you need audio-centric applications. And that leads to a first-party strategy and things like that. And then it becomes a little bit complicated. But when you put things together, there's money in the market that will now, not in 10 years, not in 2 years, now pay for that. And this is the interesting part of it, because if you can shift people to that, you get immediately more money out of it. It's not a kind of DAB, digital radio start in Germany 2011, which is traditional broadcasting, where you have a giant technical reach, but nobody has a DAB plus radio. So you pay for years and years and years for that and won't get any return on that. It's different now because it's now in every car, and it's very interesting. But when you started 2011, what we did with the radio stations, then you had to pay a lot of years for that without getting money out of it.
Okay. Digital strategies is the word that I used because we all think, and just confirm me if I'm right, strategies should try to drive the biggest number of listeners to the propriety of the publisher, to his app, to his website, every touch point where the publisher can collect data and manage advertisement without leaving a big quota of revenue to 30 and other parts in the chain. Okay. Bala, about this topic, how is the situation for you?
Okay, I will answer your question in a two segment. First one, the ad servers. We did have the ad servers maybe in the last 7 or 8 years. Then we decommissioned and we implemented again mid of last year, because we see there's a huge potential for the programmatic buying in this region. So we implemented ad server partnering with AdWiz mid of last year for all of our digital streams. I think 26 to be exact. To answer your second question on the broadcasting or simulcasting over the IP, radio does have a huge potential too. We did a small survey early last year during the pandemic, asking the listeners their music preference and their listening habits. And out of that, we created 60 brand new online radio station, and we launched on November 1st last year. So we address all the music genre to satisfy all the listeners. And all of this music scheduling are curated by the trained staff, and we leverage on the cloud technologies and also the ad servers. And we've been broadcasting for the last, I think, 2 months now, and the traction is very, very impressive.
Okay. Probably, again, I ask you to confirm or not what I'm saying. Probably native music stations, digital native, not the simulcasting, and also maybe on-demand content, podcasts and so on, are the first point to be monetized with digital audio advertising, because they are natively digital, and the audience goes on these platforms. Michael, your overview about this topic, the possibility to target people, the possibility, how technology help to produce the content to target people, and also the possibility to target spots to these people.
Yeah, I think what's currently, or what's happening with the targeting of AdWords and the program to the people, there is something which massively helps the radio stations by the usage of these new technologies like streaming of radio stations, because you get information which is hugely important and helpful for yourself. Because the more you know about your listener, the better you can firstly make your program to attract those people, to put kind of comparable people into the same station and build a program which everyone loves and is listening to. And on this other side, the more you learn about those people, the more important it is for your AdWords, for what you're selling, because you can ask for higher prices. And as we learned from Matthias already, it's something which works very well in Germany. We are from the CGI side, we have a lot of customers in the public broadcast. They can't really participate in this because they're not allowed to do this in that way. So they are allowed, of course, to have digital stations and to have stations which are aimed to different people, different music styles, but they're not allowed to AdWord on those. But I can, from my point of view, I can just confirm when I see in our customer base what they're doing, that those digital channels are really important and are really a good way to find funding for yourself, and also, of course, to make new programs to bring the journalistic things you want to tell to the people. So I think the way it's currently working will just improve in the next years as well, because the more technology you can use, and maybe we're talking about this later on when we talk about technologies in the background like artificial intelligence and automation processes, the better the data you have, and then you can use it to target to the audience, and of course find your perfect spot for the right listeners and sell it at the perfect price.
Okay. Part of the workflow has also changed in function of on-demand content, of time-shifted schedule in general. Let's do a quick discussion about this, because this is something very different from the DNA of broadcast radio. And for sure, one of the main values of broadcast radio is the opportunity to reach a huge number of people in the same moment, to make to provide news in real time and so on. So on one side there is the interest of population to listen to podcasts and on-demand content not without a linear approach, okay, not the approach of the linear radio. On the other side, there are stations, publishers that have content that could be have value also on demand. What is the opinion of Jose about catch-up radio and also native podcasts produced inside the stations? Is it so important, or station should use digital streaming, something more similar to live and simulcasting?
No, I think it's essential. The podcast area and the the cross platforms and the time shifting with the possibility of catching up radio that was live on demand or even in different formats are essential for the brand. I really believe, and we have some experiences with that some products that we have on radio and are available on demand can actually track listeners to the live radio because they knew the product on demand and on the completely different platforms. So that cross is fundamental. What I think it's very relevant for the traditional content producers, the radio channels, is finding out the right technology to support this, because the teams are getting shorter and shorter. The financial limitations are growing, and it's not easy to get the same short team to be able to produce content to go live and then prepare parts of that content or all that content to be available on demand. So we need the support of the technical providers to have supported on the artificial intelligence or whatever, being able to have tools to auto-edit segments of the live radio and being able to make it available on demand afterwards, using the speech to text to manage in some automatic way the metadata associated with those contents, which is fundamental for guaranteeing that the products from the radio are discoverable, and all that I think is definitely essential for the stations. It's the only way.
Okay, Matthias, but also the content, the workflow to produce content should change, I think. If you need to produce a live content that is okay also for on-demand listeners, how do you? What is our solution? Have you already faced this problem, these topics in your station?
Yes, and maybe in a little bit different way, because I learned together maybe with Michael from Germany that Germany is maybe a little bit different, because if you put out some public radio stations, which may have, even in the more intellectual stations, some on-air content you would love to find later when it was broadcasted, for maybe a very, very interesting story, which is broadcasted on the news talk radio stations in the morning at 11, where I'm normally working, and so I couldn't listen to that. It could be very interesting to find that piece of good content I would never heard of before in some sources like the public broadcasters have now, and which are really good use. They have a kind of a mediathek, so it's a kind of aggregation application from all the public broadcasters in Germany, and it's very, very popular, and I think it's the third biggest audio-on-demand source in Germany, close to Spotify, which is very interesting because it's for public broadcasters who are very traditional, not very technology oriented in the mindset of private radio people, it's very interesting what happens there in the last 10 years. Very good people behind focusing on good content on private radio stations. Sorry, guys, you don't want it to listen to that DJ talk again who said 10 in a row, I love Phil Collins, and next song is from, I don't know, mostly Ed Sheeran. So on private radio stations, you don't have that content on the air that people want to listen to again and again and again. But you can create content like podcasts and things like that, but you have to create this. And this is our perspective that we are starting with, or that we're focused on, is creating broadcasting objects, maybe out of a pool, and then you automatically can cut out things for different channels, for different formats, but not try to have a live radio program there, giving everything out, just throw it out of the window, all your ideas in just that second, and then to cope with the problem, to get metadata to that, what works in a kind of, I call it, Piero, I hope I pronounce it right, lasagna. You can't split out the single ingredients of a lasagna after it comes out of the oven. So you have to switch and say, okay, I just keep the single ingredients, and then I make a small lasagna, put it in the oven, send it away, and then I could use the tomato sauce as well for something like that. I like to cook, that's why I'm used to that kind of pictures. So this is our perspective, and this is what drives us to kick real live mixing of radio stations and live DJ talks to a format called Near to Live. It's not that kind of voice tracking today for in 3 days. It's more you are in the moment where your show is produced and aired in the studio. You can switch everything what you want, but you don't do it live. You do it maybe the very easy parts, just talking about music. You can do it 2 hours before it is aired. And if you have a brilliant idea for that talk, you recorded 2 hours ago because Angela Merkel did anything in the past. Now she's not our chancellor anymore, which is funny. You can just delete it and re-edit it before it is aired. And this is what we're doing with news, which is very uncommon, but very successful, because in this way we can mass customization. We can do a mass customization of news shows, and we do it with DJ talks and everything else. And this is not a podcast. We do a very successful podcast as well, but this is produced in a totally different way. This is kind of a content pool, and then we cut out single slices for different playouts and different channels.
Okay. Thanks for the quote of lasagnas also, from an Italian person. I have written down a keyword that I heard from you, broadcast objects, because this is a good synthesis of something that is part of the projects of many publishers now, I think, but I had not the correct name. I have written down, I will use it. Okay.
It's from the BBC, I think.
Okay, let's go to Michael about this topic.
Yeah, maybe we stick with this lasagna a little bit. So we heard about object-based audio, and object-based audio is really something which is really interesting from a technical point of view, because you don't do a merge, you don't do really a mix down of what you did, and in the end you have a WAV file where everything is stored in 2 stereo channels. You've got single objects which are used inside a track, and you can exchange parts like jingles, like the speaker, the one who's presenting, like the music or whatever. And if you produce object-based audio, that's great. And one thing we're looking into technically, because sometimes it's interesting for public broadcasters who might have those, I think we call them intellectual programs, to de-lasagnaize the stuff in the end. Because what is really an interesting workflow, if you have a live program, which is interesting, which you might want to reuse, because you're not only telling this was Lady Gaga and then comes Tina Turner, where something happens which is really interesting, you might want to reuse it. You even want to reuse it automatically, because as we learned in this talk already, we might be short on people. We might need to produce 3 times the numbers of product program slots of jingle of placeholders within the schedule without having enough people. And one thing which really is interesting where object-based audio kicks in, and this was an idea which was invented by the BBC. If I have a radio stream, how can I record it in a way that after the recording, I do not have a wave recording which just has a stereo channel, but where I have this recording, and this recording contains all those objects, those audio objects, and then I can decide, what do I want to do with it? Do I want to separate just the presenter? Do I want to exchange the jingles? Because in the original recording, we played a jingle which was called Radio 1, but we want to exchange it with Radio 2. Or do we maybe want to exchange other things in there? And this is really interesting. And this is one of the technologies and techniques where I think it's just at the edge of emerging at the moment, because everyone talks about it's still technically quite complicated to generate object-based audio if you take recordings from a studio, because you need to have the possibility to grab each and every single output by itself and then put it on a timeline to see what happened when. So it's doable, but it's not straightforward, easy. But I think this is one way which will help people to reuse content in a interesting and good way, and it helps. I think it helps to keep the program qualities up by reducing the amount of work people need to do, because you can easily reuse content also in a completely different environment than the environment where it firstly was used. So I think this is really interesting. And we should all note down that it's called object-based audio, and that we will possibly talk and see and use it within the next years.
Okay, just a quick tour of the table, around of the table, about skills that will work in this sort of kitchen. If we need to lasagneize the broadcast, sorry for my irony, bad irony. We need new skills, a new mental approach when we project and we produce radio content, because most part of broadcasters are focused on the live show. When you ask someone about radio, they answer talking about DJs. Okay, so in your stations, is there any new young collaborator person, and which is the profile? Is there any new kind of profile for people working in the stations in this perspective? Again, we start with Jose.
Sorry. I think for sure it has to change, and mainly what happens is that the people need to start working also in a logic of not object-based audio, but multi-platform based content. And I feel that in our teams, we already have quite a few people that can understand, and when they are doing a live moment that is not just introducing a song, a Sheeran song, they need to think it wider than the radio's product. And when they are talking or doing an interview, they a lot of times are already thinking that there are parts of that interview that will be used specifically for Instagram. And when they are, although they are doing a live moment on radio, they prepare the interview segmented to be easy to cut it out some moments and have different usage of it. And also to have it automatically or more adapted to that platform. Because I think we've learned already, and the air talent also learned it, that is not possible to be on Instagram, Facebook, or whatever, exactly in the same way that we are on the radio. We need to have a different approach. So maybe the fact that we all, as a consumer, we also have a different perspective we automatically convert ourselves and start to understand that they need to be have different skills. Of course, this is not for everyone, but and I'm sure it's easier if we have a technical solution that can support this. And this object-based audio is definitely, for me as well, the way to go. I understand when Michael says that it's a big challenge for the companies, but we've seen some approaches already. And I'm sure the fact that we are not as dependent of audio cards, maybe suddenly we can have a multi-track recording running in a very much more easy way than we had 10 years ago or 5 years ago even. So yes, I think the change is there. Radio station and radio people were always very good at adapting to the new eras and to the new technology. That's why we are survivors. And I believe that the teams are, at least here in Portugal, I believe that the teams are already doing that. We have a lot of products. We even have in one of our stations, the CHR, it's doing content of 1 hour for Instagram that is planned to have small parts on the radio. And when they do it, they clearly have it prepared so that it will be easy for the producer to remove those spaces that need to go to the radio, and they will make sense on the radio. They do video casts, for example, and they are able already to be concerned on the way they do it so that it's also being understandable without video. So even if they are fully working for video at that moment, they don't forget that parts of it will be aired on radio or podcasted without video. So I think that it's a natural adaptation of the most part of the teams, influenced by our day-to-day life.
The resilience of broadcasters. Okay, yes. We have a consistent final round to do, but I just want a quick comment from Matthias and Bala about the skills.
Maybe I'll go first, Matthias.
You please,
Bala.
Go for it.
Okay, we can approach that in the two area. One is a skill, and another one is systems. Skills, we do have a bunch of talent which we normally groom over and over again to so that they can produce the content very, very fast. And at the same time, to approach that, we have a very reliable system. We can say as a content management system. So we really can save a lot of time by using one system and address all the social media part of it. One of the good example is for example, when we do an image for one website and also for the phone, we need to prepare two different sizing. So with a proper CMS system, we only need to do one image, and the subsequent for different devices is automatically scaled. So that really saved our content production time. So the CMS is like one of the strong portion which we really need to look into it. If it is bigger station, like for one, if a single radio station or one or two, we don't have to spend that much of time. But if you have more than 5 stations, then it is really encouraged to spend some time on the CMS and try to modify the CMS system to suit your business. That really worked for us.
Okay. So faced with the many development opportunities and the need to contain costs, what remains of the essence of radio? What is the value regardless of the technology? Because we are talking about forms, formats, and ways to listen to audio content that are very different from the original broadcast model. But there is a DNA of radio that remains. And from you that are in most part broadcasters, I would like to know what remains of the essence of radio resilience, flexibility, ability to adapt to the scenario is something that has already emerged from your speech. Let's start this time with Matthias.
I think in most cases, radio people are really surprised by themselves that radio survived. It's more like you see there's an accident and you shut your eyes and then you open up and say, oh, I'm not dead. And digital helps to understand why people love radio, but they don't love to listen to a special channel. They don't love their FM radio, things like that. They like the content or the brand or the people that are there on the air, talents and things like that. And I think radio will remain and has a very, very good perspective. But the way in which radio is produced to reach all these assets has to change totally. And this is one of the things I'm pretty much sure that we're all, you can see I have gray hair as well. I'm in the business longer than 20 years, like you all too. And we connect the way radio is produced with the opportunities we had in the 70s and 80s, how we can do that. I started my career playing CDs in a radio studio and records and tapes and cutting tapes as very horrible to cut. So, but today you can use it, technology in a way that you can wake up in the morning and starting highly automated, creating very good content. And this should be the purpose for people who are working in a content unit to produce content and not doing administrative stuff. So, and I think when you understand that and look to YouTube creators who try to play the game totally and connect all of their channels together, Instagram, things like that, because they live from that. They can only monetize what they create. You find a lot of software solutions for these guys out there because they have to be efficient. But they will only reward it by good content. If they don't produce good content, they don't get any views. And I think this is one of the parts we have maybe split off, because when I talk about not broadcasting live anymore, a lot of people say that will kill radio, and say, no, it's about the content that's produced. And I think this is a discussion you have in your companies, I think everywhere when you want to change that. And the second one is that you can't separate IT or broadcasting technology from the content people. In former times, you did the content and the IT guy did the rest. And when you have a problem, you call the first level support. Today, when I look back from the software development processes and workflow improvements we did, it's a collaborative work, not so easy to spell for German, of IT guys together in a team with content guys. When we are here, we're talking about technology together with with tech people and say, oh, I think their metadata must be wrong because we have that there, or it did this, it should have done that. The editors, the air channels know what the machine is doing and what it should do. And this is one of the parts and maybe the major shift in organization to bring these people together and then bring the right people together, because not everybody who's working in an IT department and on a radio station is a great innovative guy, or girl. So to be honest.
Michael, do you agree with Matthias about the importance of IT and content not separated?
Yes, I totally agree. I think in the early days, it was like Matthias said, you had the IT department, they were the bad IT guys, and you had the journalists, the content people who were the content people, and they were somehow divided. And we see this since a long period of time, that the technology went more and more into the studios. Analog mixing desks became digital. Tape machines became CD players, then CD players vanished and became computers, and so I think it's really, you need this collaborative approach. You need to have the right tools, because it's not that you use this technology because it's there. This technology needs to be handled by people who may not be computer lovers, but it needs to be in a way that they can operate it in an easy way. And coming back to your question, what remains of radio, and why is radio still there, and will it still be there? I think it will still be there, but because one thing, apart from all the technology, is it is still some kind of fascinating that somewhere in the world, someone is sitting in front of a microphone and talks into it, and you can sit wherever you like and you receive it. So kind of radio is your friend. It's there for you, and you bound with it in a way. And I think this is one important thing which also keeps radio alive. It is there for you. It's like a good friend. It's there in good times and in bad times. And sometimes it's even playing Ed Sheeran and you're happy.
Okay, will radio and broadcasters work in completely new ways in the future? This was one of the questions we asked before organizing this round table. I think that one answer is right now they are working in a new way. But also, will studios be designed in a different way in next years, 2-3 years? I ask this question to Bala. We change the architecture of studios where we broadcast.
Yes, maybe you can show the Philip. Maybe you can show the picture which I shared. These are the studio which we developed in 2019, and subsequently we're going to deploy for all of our studios. The future studio will have like a software-defined radio console where we equip it all a touchscreen, so that one of the matter behind the pipeline is to replace all the physical button or knob-based console to virtual console. The whole idea why we are doing this is like mainly to have approach for the remote operations, and also at the same time we try to automate as many functions as possible, and provide more time for the announcer to spend their time in producing the content rather than to worry about the technology part of it.
Okay, I think I ask Jose if he has something to add about the architecture of radio studios.
I think I would just add what you mean a studio, because as we were talking earlier on, will it be one studio? Will it be an aggregation of many remote locations? We will be setting up small in a pack studios for each of our contributors that can be anywhere in the world. I think it will change a lot, and obviously you probably in the next few years you will still have a studio, but after the pandemic and after the experience pushed by the pandemic, where we were able to do radio from home and to make it work and have a decent, not a top, but a very decent audio quality, people will want to have a different approach, and we will need to design the studios to be ready to work in a completely different way. Eventually, and we looked at the initial video with the Maddox solution. There's some other ones like Zeta Cloud, etc. We will move on to a cloud-based solution, maybe where you can have contributors from anywhere, and you could be doing your almost live shows, as Matthias said a few times, where we can not focus so much on these, I'm getting a live content, but it's just a pre-recorded live moment almost. So sure, the studios will change a lot, and I think it's no turn back. It will have to move forward on that direction.
Okay, Mattia, quickly your opinion for this.
Yeah, it will have more opportunities to produce content, like Michael said. And this is one of the parts. We have a national radio show, which is produced with the anchor in Brussels, in Belgium. The producer is in Spain. We have the sidekick for one of the split ups in a suburb of Berlin. And we have the second sidekick for another split up in the northeastern part of Germany. So try to put that in one studio. It's impossible. So, and this is what it's all about. It's only about sound of the microphone. The rest is easy to do if you do pre-produced stuff. But is this the only answer? Maybe not, because sometimes you want to have 5 people in one room and you want to have a star visiting you, and then you don't want to invite him to your private home where your home studio is. So I think it's all about new ways and more opportunities to create great content, because if I don't have that opportunity to produce a morning show like that, I wouldn't have that morning show. But I want to have that because it's good. And this is what studio design is all about. And today, you don't need more than 4,000 euros to build a great sounding studio at home.
Okay, Michael, about the future of the structures where we produce radio.
Well, I can only add to what already has been said. I think the studio setup itself will change, and the where the studio is being built will change as well, because you do not necessarily need to have big acoustically isolated rooms with huge mixing desks in there. It can also be a very nice loungy area room with a couch where you can meet up with your celebrity and record something. So I think it's all moving away from where, and the only question is what kind of technology, what kind of software, what kind of microphones do you give to the people to create their content? Because I think content is what really counts and what differentiates the different radio stations and the different offerings.
I think that we can say content and the way radio people is able to present the content due to this to its experience, DNA, ability to entertain, and this is part of what will remain of radio, of traditional radio, independently compared with technology and evolution. So I written down a few keywords: broadcast objects, AI, resilience of radio people, content, which is always king. So content is obviously written down, and collaborative work to produce radio also from remote sites, from home, from a live session outside the station, and so on. I think this is part of the words we can use to summarize what we have said. I thank you very much for your participation to this session. I hope that people that watched this session found interesting concepts and ideas also to evolve, change, rethink their daily workflow in the station, their approach. And obviously, we thank the sponsors and the organization of Radio Week. Thanks for watching.